You know, before I begin this piece, I like to say I've heard some of the most ridiculous things as far as the affinity for consoles go. These range from downright bloodthirsty maniacs too blind to see that corporations nickel and dime them for every single penny every day. The defense of bad business practices in light of a review where people commonly try to persuade you into believing that an item can't be critiqued. That piece of foreign plastic that is more ideal to some people than life itself, like the needs of a car, a house, that's even more important than their own children. A lot of people who participate in this fictional console war are actually grown adults with their own spawn. Let's dig deep right into one of the juicy topics in this video and explain thoughts on the fictional console war. For a long time, even longer than I can remember as a kid, there were people bickering in the past about how blast processing was so cool in the NES and Sega Genesis days, when it was revealed that that really wasn't anything special. Sega used this term as more of an appeal to get more people invested into their brand. A better term of keywords to use is actually a marketing ploy if you want to get really technical. And like so many brainless fish in the sea, a consumer just really falls for the hook, especially if they're obsessed with a brand. Over the years, the same mentality applies in every situation. A company says a few key words to get the reader hooked into the console capabilities, when naturally, some of these premises are too good to be true. Did people really believe that some of these consoles could achieve 4K 60 FPS across the board when two GTX 980 Ti's can't do the job? The Xbox One can barely hold a resolution with upcoming releases like Battlefield 1 being locked at 720p. 4K is expensive, and there's so many hurdles there for consoles, hurdles that sound more like a pipe dream if anything. I'd imagine the new standard of console war arguments from dumb countless comments just equals to my console runs better than yours, which it always has, by the way. Even though the sole fact is, if your argument just talks about the number of teraflops you have, the more likely your console is to succeed, right? Then by your own logic, the PC destroys consoles that aren't even out yet by default with pure logic once again. And I will place this on screen for you guys to check this out. So, where did we get to this point? Why did certain fanatics get so inept at basic facts? Eventually, we have to start at square one. Every consumer who does buy a product are fished into a number of reasons to buy it. Some reasons are more extreme than others when brand loyalty rears its ugly face. Let's be fucking realist for a second and let's face facts. The console war died before it even began. A multitude of arguments aren't going to change the key facts that number one, PC is stronger than any console due to the amount of crazy graphics cards, processors, and the equipment you could put into your rig is built to last. And if you don't believe me, just ask my dead 1 year PS4 questions with his low tier thermal paste inside of the machine. Number two, if there's no exclusives on your system and if you sell it at a high price, then the console is bound for failure. This happened with the PS3 on the PS3's launch. Basically what happened was all their exclusives got delayed. Well, most of the ones that people were looking forward to, like MGS4 and Grand Theft Auto 4, they got delayed into another year. And basically the console was at a high price with a lack of games for a long time. They eventually bounced back, but still the launch of that console was a failure, so Sony took some precautions and took some lessons with the PS4. Now, there's this entire hype about the Neo and Scorpio when a developer predicted some choice words to take under advisement about how these systems will bring something essentially relative to HD ports in the current gen, since these games can't be too structurally different and they also must run on the last iterations of those consoles. They have to be able to run on the last iterations of the consoles that came out. What that means is, don't expect any Scorpio and Neo exclusives anytime soon. Number three, people who are smart already thought outside of the box and made a rational decision for the platform that they choose to game on. You aren't seeing a lot of educated people giving courtesy to extreme bad business practices that will affect the industry in a negative light if it comes to buying a particular console or buying into the hype of a particular game or believing that Microsoft will break new ground, since they have a very lucrative mentality of lavish ideas that just fall flat. We all remember 2013 so well for those boys. And I didn't even get into super fancy technical terms or numbers or equations or things like that, and quite frankly I really don't need to. A mere bucket of research from Google pretty much shows that the GTX 1080 has 9 teraflops and higher specs over the projected numbers of consoles that aren't even out yet, and that's just a graphics card. I mean, if people really are making the argument of teraflops and DX12 and cloud being so important, I don't think they're really looking into the facts of the situation and how a lot of technology is advancing, and sometimes the consoles are left in the dust, and that's unfortunate. There are some things that I like about this, though, don't get me wrong. I do like the fact that the consoles are upgrading piece by piece, because I always thought that that number system of PlayStation 4, 5, 6, Xbox One, 2, 3 was just getting redundant and stupid. And as far as the current gen goes, I do still believe that Sony still has a great opportunity to bring good exclusives on the market, especially with good business practices, as swooping in to save Kojima from the tyrant that is Konami, and the Xbox One is probably still going to have all their semi-exclusives on Windows 10, because why not? If you can hear me whispering, I'm just going to slowly reap those benefits on PC. Thank you. But this fictional console war that continues to wage on, it needs to stop. And I'm going to say, I am pleased as a consumer to make my own decisions, look at all sides of the equation, look at what's best, and not be so biased to a brand, because that's what smart people do, right? My remaining personal thoughts on the Scorpio and Neo is that it might be good to finally see some more games get that leg up, graphical wise, performance wise, since a lot of the games do tend to get downgraded on that hardware due to hardware limitation, and that is off the charts. Do I think the PlayStation Neo and Xbox Scorpio will be revolutionary? Do I think they will be the next step in technological advancement? Well, no. Far from it, actually. It's just like you're ordering a slightly bigger meal with these add-ons. It makes you less famished, but the food tastes exactly the same on your taste buds. If there's only going to be slight performance upgrades, then that's just what it's going to be, and nothing else special. To see who takes advantage of these short advancements in game development is just anybody's ballpark with this small bump. But I do hope that this little console war, this little fictional war in people's minds, I hope it just dies. I really do. Because all these lies and misconceptions and arguments and all these comments that go on YouTube, you must know that a lot of the stuff that you're saying is just a pipe dream. And I'm being a realist. I'm being a very, very upfront realist about all this stuff. For the people that like to go around and spark flame wars and don't know how valuable time is, just know that life is short and hate is baggage, and it's not worth being pissed off over a piece of plastic. Step away from the keyboard and live your life without Sony or Microsoft always being ideal to that time.